what are some of the milestones that you went through as you started to enter into this world?
I feel like when you go on trail asking a specific question, the universe like kind of answers you. So I had one of those experiences where I had spent the last 4 or 5 months asking myself, why am I alone? Like, why am I doing this? What am I trying to get out of it? Is this like strong, independent woman shtick really like serving me? And it helped me kind of explore these ideas, like bouncing ideas off of other people, having those conversations. And so I decided to write a book about that experience.
Long term, you want to do publishing. What else what's the, long, 5 to 10, 15? Where do you see yourself,
I think eventually I'd like to buy in on something and like be a part of having a little like homesteady kind of place to land.
What were some of the things that when you entered in, that you're just like, oh, yeah, this is an eye opener. This is different.
I think it was not like one thing, but just a progression of the slow dirt bagging of a previously normal human.
Right.
But first it was the Appalachian Trail. And I think when you have never done things like that, I had never backpacked. I had hardly ever camped. I had not really done any hiking. Like I didn't know anything about anything. So I was going in completely naive, which I think is a great way to go into things. Just like do the amount of research that's going to keep you from dying out there and then just go. Don't think you need to know everything or have every single piece of gear or like be the most prepared Boy Scout that you need to be.
All right, I'm here with Christine Reed, and we're gonna get into some like some outdoor stuff today, some hiking, and you're in an interesting spot of the country right now. You're on the Mexican and the California border. It's kind of like a little bit of a no man's land, a little bit where you're at right now, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm in a very, very tiny town called Jacumba, which I honestly don't even know the population of, but it's can't be more than 1,000.
So let's go back. I want to know, a little bit about you. Like, why the outdoors? Why do you do what you do? What was your upbringing like, and what was the impetus for this?
Yeah, I grew up in what I lovingly refer to as an indoor family. I grew up reading books and playing video games and like doing not outdoorsy things at all. And then it wasn't until my 20s when I got out of college and I was sort of just like looking for purpose in life and not sure what I was doing with myself. That I happened across a blog about the Appalachian Trail and the way that people talked about the trail and the way that it helped them figure out who they were and helped them figure out what was important in life and sort of gave them a new sense of direction and purpose all sounded very romantic to me. And I thought, I think I'm going to go do that. And that was sort of the catalyst. A little over 10 years ago now. It was the fall of 2013 when I read that blog.
Wow. And then, well, where did your journey take you from there?
I took about a year from there to plan for the AT and like buy all the gear and do as much research as I knew how to do. And I briefly moved to Yosemite National Park during that time, thinking that I was going to practice hiking and hang out with outdoorsy people, which didn't exactly go the way that I thought it would, but I did have a wonderful time there and like learned some new things. But
what happened? What changed?
I didn't know about rock climbing. So I got to Yosemite and I was like, where are all the cool hiking people? And everybody was like, we only climb rocks here. What are you talking about?
Right. Yeah. I know some of those people. Yeah. Yeah. It's a totally different thing. I know a lot of people that, the rock climbing, but then there's the difference between the John Muir Appalachian Trail, John Muir Trail, which is it's the West Coast, answer to, like this was planned, no, it's Mother Nature. But you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Different kind of community too, different kind of mentality.
For sure. And, now I am a rock climber now, but I certainly wasn't then. And the rock climbing community in Yosemite is very different than anywhere else. And it's, I would say a bit exclusionary, especially to people who have literally no idea what is going on. I didn't get into climbing there. It was later when I moved to Denver that I sort of got into that. So after Yosemite, I went and hiked a big section of the AT. And then I moved to Denver and I lived in Colorado for a few years and I just sort of couldn't really reintegrate to the normal day-to-day job life. I struggled a lot with that. And so after a couple of years, I bought a van and I went out on the road and kind of never looked back after that.
Yeah, that's so popular now. I just was in last year I was in Sun Valley, Idaho, and everybody
Mm.
has got these nice tricked out like vans. I mean, I think they're awesome. The Ram, Dodge, what kind of rig do you have?
I'm actually currently in a minivan, so it's a Mazda 5.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I used to have a Ford Transit, which is
Okay.
similar to the ProMaster. And before that, I was in an old Dodge Ram van, not a fancy one.
So where does your travels take you that, from that point you start to say, okay, you know, I'm gonna be into the wild, not so, by the way, there's so many movies that, this has just happened, this phenomenon. It's like, I'd say it's 20 years old, it's about 20 years of like really starting to hit stride. I mean, you could say that people like always said, you could say it started in the 60s, when people say, I'm going to take off, but the freedom of it is that you don't have to be confined to day to day society the way the conventional. But when you decided to go into the wild, the was it Nomad Life, was it no
Nomad Land, that
Nomad
movie.
Land, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good movie. I love Francis McDormand too. um so I mean, what's the how do you sustain it, and what are some of the milestones that you went through as you started to enter into this world?
Yeah. Gosh, people do it so many different ways, but I went on the road with some money saved in the beginning. And so for the first like 4 or 5 months, I really didn't know what I was trying to do. And I was just like, I just need to get out of here. I just need to go see things, explore, be independent, do whatever. I really didn't know where I was going or what I was trying to do, which led very quickly to a feeling of aimlessness and sort of like questioning why I wanted to do it and not sure where to find community or how to meet people. And I struggled a lot in the first 4 or 5 months. And then I decided, you know what? The Appalachian Trail was a really good experience for me before. I'm going to go hike. Like I'm going to leave my van parked somewhere and I'm going to go get on trail and see if I can meet people and do that. And so I got on the Wonderland Trail, which is a loop that goes around Mount Rainier in Washington. And I hiked that and had sort of a I feel like when you go on trail asking a specific question, the universe like kind of answers you.
Yeah.
So I had one of those experiences where I had spent the last 4 or 5 months asking myself, why am I alone? Like, why am I doing this? What am I trying to get out of it? Is this like strong independent woman shtick really like serving me? And then on the Wonderland Trail, it was like every single person that I ran into was like, why are you alone out here? Isn't this dangerous? Do your parents know that you're out here by yourself? And, I was just sort of having all of the questions I was asking myself reflected back toward me from every single person that I met. And it helped me kind of explore these ideas, like bouncing ideas off of other people, having those conversations. And so I decided to write a book about that experience. And that launched me in this completely other trajectory where now my traveling sort of had a purpose or a background.
So, what was the name of the book, and how did you promote that? And let's talk about currency, because that is such a you need that in some way, shape, or form. Even to, because I would think that like everybody's different though. Everybody's got a thumbprint for this, but you know to get away from the confines of like so much structure in society to have more freedom, or not, everybody's got their own difference, but you still need currency. Some people don't. I know people that like, it's like, I'm 100% off currency, you know? It's very interesting, on how they navigate that, but how do you navigate that? And how did the book play a part? And what does that look like? You got to talk about that part of it, and I'm curious to know what it's like for you.
Yeah. So I like I said, I had some money saved up and then I started writing the book. And so I sort of stretched the money I had saved through the process of writing the book. And I picked up a few odd jobs here and there. I like worked at a couple of Renaissance fairs in Oregon when I was there. And um, I guided a trip in the Grand Canyon. At the beginning of van life, I actually thought I was going to get my woofer certification and go be a hiking guide because I was like, oh, that's cool. It's seasonal. I can work when I want to. I don't have to work all the time. So I thought it would be a good flexible option. And I know people who do that and are really happy with it. But yeah, after I guided my first trip, then the pandemic happened and I was like, well, I don't really know what to do with that.
Where were you during the pandemic?
I was actually in Key West when it started. And then I went back to Denver. And I kind of hung in Denver with some friends for a while in like the thick of not knowing what was happening. And then once things were sort of a little more figured out, I went on a climbing trip in Wyoming for the summer of 2020 because I figured there wouldn't be very many people there.
You wrote the book after that.
I was
Before
working on the book at that time. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, so I find interesting is like this world of like, you have to, you write this book and you got to be glued to a computer after you write a book. Well, we actually before, during, and
Both.
after. So especially after you're like, I've chopped a tree down. No, but who's going to hear it? So it's like, you got to get out. You got to, so you're sitting in your van and you're working, or you're going to locate, like a coffee shop, or you're promoting your book. Is that how was that like?
Yeah. So the first year, pretty much all of my promotion was on social media because of the pandemic, because places were not hosting live events. And then I actually, so the book came out in January of 21, and then I didn't start book touring until 22. So I did pretty much a full year of book touring, from like May of 22 to May of 23. And yeah, I traveled all over the country. I scheduled, events with like local gear shops, local bookstores, libraries, REIs. I gave talks and sold books. And, it's not writing a book. Anyone who thinks writing a book is going to be an incredibly lucrative endeavor, it should check themselves before they put the effort in.
Yes.
But it's enough to scrape by. And I'd go to an event, sell 20 books. That's enough money to get me gas and food to get to the next place. And I sort of just did that for a year, and was trying to write a second book the whole time, which it's hard to be in like full like promotion mode and marketing, because that is a full-time job, especially if you're traveling, and doing events, and then also be creative and writing at the same time. And so I really struggled with that.
Right. Writing a book is like a calling card, really for, another career. Did you strategize that? You said, no, I just got to get this book out. Or is it also, an additive towards a calling card towards, look, this is my mission to promote this, to segue into that. What was it
Not
about?
really. I kind of, honestly, I wrote the book because I had the idea and I was like, I think this book is important and I think the story I want to tell is important and people need to hear it. And I didn't really know where I was going from there. And so once I had done it, I thought, I guess I'm a writer now. And so I thought I should write a second book. And maybe that isn't my destiny. Maybe that isn't the future for me, but that was sort of the natural progression that I thought was going to happen. And so I was trying to make that happen. And then about a year ago, I had the idea that maybe instead of writing a book, I'd get a bunch of other people to write a book for me because I was struggling so much with it. And I thought that must be easier if everybody else writes it and then I can just put it together.
Right.
And so I launched, story submissions for a short story collection that I'd sort of been dreaming for a little bit, last spring, summer. And I've been working on that project ever since. And I will humbly admit that it has not been any easier than writing my own book. But it is happening and it's launching in a couple months. So I guess it was successful. Yeah.
It's all connected though. It's like that helps your social media. Social media helps the book, and then and your whole message. Now as far as the first book, the main thesis of that, or several of, how would you describe the main thesis of the book? Like, the main messages and the bullet points of those, those missions of what you're trying to express.
Yeah, the first book is called Alone in Wonderland, and it is really an exploration of the interaction of independence and loneliness. And so it follows my through hike on the Wonderland Trail, but it's really about like that journey of seeking independence and in some ways finding it and then maybe not being satisfied with that or as fulfilled with it as I thought I would be.
Right. Yeah. That's another thing, A lot of people don't talk about that. Some people want to protect their, so you go in there, it's like, yeah, I set out to do this and this was my cause celeb. And I kind of like lived happily ever after this. And that's not always the case because you can get out there. There's a great movie. It's called America. I think it's called America. It's read the Albert Brooks. I'm dating myself. It's like in the late 70s, early 80s. Have you seen this movie? Oh, okay. So he's got a Mercedes. He's in New York City, and he's like, or no, he's in LA. And he tells his wife, let's just get out. Let's just go. Let's get out of here. Let's just sell her to get the RV, and just see the world, and he's like all, conceptualized it, so excited. And then one of their first stops is Vegas. And his wife, she was the main actress in Airplane. I don't remember her. anyway, she's a funny actress. So she ends up like blowing all the money in Vegas, like their nest egg, that was going to last them throughout their whole lifetime, just to, explore the world, RV it, and it's just this whole thing, just them trying to survive, and it's not what it cut out to be. Ultimately, it shows him pulling up his RV in Manhattan, trying to he gets an executive job. So I guess that, that didn't, his journey didn't last that long. But what were some of the things that when you entered in, that you're just like, oh, yeah, this is an eye opener. This is different. This is what's happening with me now. I don't think you lost all your money in Vegas, but what happened with you?
I think it was not like one thing, but just a progression of the slow dirt bagging of a previously normal human. Right. Normal according to our societal standards, which right. Like, I guess if you subscribe to that. But it was the Appalachian Trail. And I think when you have never done things like that, I had never backpacked. I had hardly ever camped. I had not really done any hiking. Like I didn't know anything about anything. Wow. So I was going in completely naive, which I think is a great way to go into things. Just like do the amount of research that's going to keep you from dying out there and then just go. Don't think you need to know everything or have every single piece of gear or like be the most prepared Boy Scout that you need to be. Like the Appalachian Trail especially is like a great place for beginners to like just fumble around and sort of figure it out as you go along. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of things that like I researched and I was like, okay, I've got this like $200 rain jacket. And that's great. It's in my bag and I'm ready for when it rains. But like, I wasn't ready mentally for the experience of like walking outside all day long in the rain. It's cold. There's mist blowing in your face. Your nose is frozen. Like the misery of that experience. Right. There is no preparing for that. No matter how many rain outfits you have on your person. And so I think that applies to so many things along the way with the journey where it's like, yeah, I bought a van and I like took the seats out and I built a floor in there and I put a bed in there and I was like, I live in this van now. And then you get out there and you're like, well, where do I park it? And like, where am I going? And what's the point of being out here? And like my refrigerator doesn't work. And like, I set up this janky power system with very little knowledge and it just doesn't function. And now I have to like figure out why. And it's just all those little learning steps along the way where it's like, in theory, I know what I'm getting myself into. And then you get out there and you're like, oh, there's just 100 things I didn't think about. And now I'm just going to have to figure it out because I'm here.
Did you ever have that moment where you're like, you know what? I could be like in Arizona at a spa. I don't know. I mean, maybe, who knows? How did you ever think that? Going 180?
I mean, sure. Yeah. In 6 years, I've for sure thought like, oh, I could be doing 1,000 other things right now. Or like, oh, I could be doing the digital nomad thing and like be in Thailand on a beach right now, staying at an Airbnb for $12 a night,
Right.
Like there's a million different ways
that's closely related to that. That's very attainable. Like you can shift to do that. What keeps you on the track that you're on? Well, first of all, where are you at right now? What's happening with you in your life, in your career today?
Currently, I'm in the process of publishing the second book and launching my publishing company. And I'm working a job at a resort in Southern California. So I took like a full-time job to sit at a desk all day so that I could finish the publishing process in a stationary place with a desk that I can sit at. But I mean, what keeps me on the road right now is like, I'm about to go back on book tour and like, I part of it is just like I love living this way and I've been doing it for long enough that I'm fairly comfortable. Um, and part of it is the mission of what I'm doing professionally and like how I want to impact the world with like storytelling. But yeah, I mean, I think in a few years when I'm publishing other people's books more than my own and I'm not the one going on book tour anymore, that I might spend a few months in Thailand on a beach paying $12 a night for an Airbnb.
Is that what you want? You want to get into publishing? You want to get into publish other people's books?
Yeah, so this project is a short story collection with stories from 25 other writers, and it was sort of my gateway into now I'm accepting manuscripts. So yeah, I'd like to be publishing 10 books a year by 2030.
Wow, that's good. Well, that'll be a way to a nice, a difference in revenue stream to what you're doing now.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure it will be just as much work, and I will find other ways to torture myself than trying to put words on the page. But
Right. That's a lot of work. It's all a lot of work. Yeah. I mean, everything that has to do with like, being an author and publishing and it's a battle with your mind to like, it's also a battle of attrition to like, I mean, you had a lot of time to write, but I mean, also when during the writing process, I mean, how much time did you write during the day to where you're not out there in the trail, because that's a lot, you have to, did you spend more time said, look, I'm going to write this. It's going to take me a year and a half to write it because you can spend 8 hours a day, off and on throughout that day writing, spitting out that book, what'd you do?
I cannot even fathom sitting and writing for 8 hours in a day. That is absolutely insane to me. I would say for the first book,
Stephen King does that. He's very prolific. He goes, he has like his schedule is like 2 hours on,
yeah,
don't get a sandwich, and then 2 hours back on, and just like 8, 9 hours. Yeah.
that's intense. And I don't aspire to be Stephen King, thankfully. So,
Right. No, most people are not.
So no, I mean, I can write for a good like 2 to 3 hour block if I'm really in the zone. But during the process with Alone in Wonderland, I would say there were several weeks along the way where I was like really excited or feeling really inspired, or the story was really moving, and I could write 4 or 5 days in a row with like good several hour long sessions. But then you get burned out. And so I sort of do that like fits and starts where it's like, okay, I spent like this week, I'm like super into it, really focused. And then I'm going to take 2 weeks off and just like hang out and climb and run and like go outside and do fun things. And, a little bit of just like low level existential dread the whole time where I'm like, I should be writing.
Right.
So you're like carrying that around with you all the time. And then that kind of motivates you back into the chair. So I definitely went through cycles the first time around. And I think, several years later now, I feel like that might just be how my creativity works. And I think the thing with writing is everybody's really different. And some people are Stephen King and he can sit and write for 8 hours.
Right.
I just can't. I think like my brain would jump out and like run away at that point. I just can't imagine
Right.
sitting for 8 hours and actually making words happen the whole
We got
time.
to remember why you're on the trail in the first place. That's not the personality. You're not going to be free. But where did you write?
Mostly coffee shops, I would say mostly coffee shops, honestly. I did do some writing when I was in Denver, and then sometimes I would sit at the climbing gym and write. But I would say those are my two big places. And during part of that time, I did have my Ford Transit, which had like a desk and I could sit in there and work. But I never had Wi-Fi. I never had, Starlink wasn't around yet. So I didn't have a way to like be on the internet. So I didn't do a ton of writing in my van. Which I think also I'm a type of person who needs like, this is a workspace and this is my life space. And I can't really get a lot of work done in my life space. I need to go somewhere where it's like, I'm sitting at a desk. I have the computer in front of me. There are no distractions.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So long term, you want to do publishing. What else what's the, long, 5 to 10, 15, where do you see yourself, what's that look like?
It's such a hard question to answer.
I know. I always ask it though. I ask it quite a bit.
I have a lot of nomad friends who are kind of like shopping for land right now, looking for places to like pick up a little spot. And I'm really excited to see that happening. I'm not in a financial position right now to like participate in the purchasing of land. But I think eventually I'd like to buy in on something and like be a part of having a little like homesteady kind of place to land. But I don't think I would ever fully come off the road. Like if I was going to have a homestead place, it would be like a little A-frame that I could come visit a few months a year, you know?
That's nice. That's cool. Very interesting. This is they're all related, and everybody's got their own little vibe, But whether it's somebody that is lives on the trail, or is van life, they call it, right? Which is a whole other thing. Uh, by the way, have you done the locations? Because that's a whole community in itself. I just talked to a girl named Abigail. I won't say her last name. She's an influencer, and she has one of those tricked out vans, and she's been said 2 years, but now she goes, I don't know, I might go longer. And she says the community is what keeps her on the road, right? And I think she says, right, she's in Baja, which is a great community.
Mhm.
Have you done that whole thing?
The Baja thing, I have
Well, the
not.
whole van, like there's destinations, like a van life destinations, which is a little different than the John Muir Appalachian Trail people that are doing that, but they're all kind of like related. It's like I don't know what the aphorism is of like people at homesteading and van life and people that are on the trail, but like getting out of society, like actually in a real, getting in the real world actually, which is what I call it, because nature's the real world, not a city.
For
So
sure. Yeah.
have you experienced those locations in that community a little bit?
Yeah, actually, I kind of got into going to van life meetups and events as part of book touring. And so I was going to like sell books and talk to people. And I I guess last year when I was doing a lot of that, I went to several different events and I was like, oh, it's like all the same people at all of these events. It's like the kind of like core crew of like van life content creators and people who are organizing events and organizing the community and trying to build something in the community are the people who are showing up at those events. And before that, for the first couple years, I was really kind of like lone wolf, on the road. Like I had a few friends, but I wasn't participating in the larger van life community. And that has been it's been a nice shift for me. And it's been nice to feel like I'm a part of something rather than just sort of like pinging around the country.
Right. She said that, because I said, what about safety, And she said, well, actually, when she's in those communities, she feels safer because they're very supportive. There's no element of, people you would think like maybe, oh, there's a bunch of people in vans, like congregated near you. You could, somebody could just go in your van and like, you're in danger, but she's like, it's actually the opposite because the community is so strong, so tight knit with each other.
Yeah. And I think the same thing on trail, where it's like we're all out here for the same reason. We're all doing the same thing. We have a level of understanding with each other that like the general population does not have with us.
So, in your expertise, opinion, somebody that hasn't done what you've done, give us five. I know this is gonna be tough, but I want you to give us 5 key points of how they can prepare to be the ultimate, hiker, backpacker. What are those 5 key points?
5 key points. One would be prepare, like do research, but don't over research. Um, I think sometimes we get stuck in the research loop and then we never do because we're so busy collecting information. Um, Two would be don't think you have to spend as much money as everybody else is spending. Like you don't need top of the line everything.
Right.
Um, Three would be I would write down why you think you want to do this and what you want to get out of it. That way, when you're out there and you're having like a really shitty day, you can be like, why am I doing this? And it'll be nice to have some stock answers ready, even if they shift and change over time, which inevitably they do. Um, yeah, four would be maybe go try to plug into that community a little sooner than I did. Find your people and like make an effort to go see them. And like the big events are great for that. But also social media is great for that. And like reach out to other people who are doing what you're doing. And like, you know, maybe not the girl with 200,000 followers, but like like a normal person.
Right.
There are lots of people who are sharing their journeys who aren't out there like trying to build a following. They're just sharing what they're doing. And like those people are super open to like meeting up and making friends. Okay, that was 4. Fifth one, I feel like something like just do it like that. That's the most advice that I give people all the time is like, whatever it is that you think is holding you back is not as big as you think it is.
Right. Those 5 can be applied to life in general. You know, writing things down, just getting scope of the situation, you know, plan, but don't over plan, don't go, analysis by paralysis. All these are great lessons. And thank you so much for sharing. I think it's a wonderful, you seem like you have the higher consciousness of of nature inside you. And I think it's wonderful. And thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, one last thing. Christina Reed, tell everybody how they can find out more about you.
Yeah. So my Instagram is definitely the best place to find me, is Rugged Outdoors Woman. And my website is ruggedoutdoorswoman.com. So you can buy my book Alone in Wonderland there. You can pre-order my upcoming book, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And you can also contact me if you're more email than social media. You can contact me through the website too.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks for joining us. Gear up for your next adventure and head over to bolator.com to check out the amazing Bolo Pack and their other innovative outdoor gear. Catch you next time.